think breaking up the carports, I would like to see more of what the carports actually look like, but in the section pieces, they look a lot more interesting, which is what we were hoping for. And breaking them up, and the landscaping on paper looks very intensive, which is good, but I would be concerned about the sizes of the trees as they go in. I'd defer to landscape architect about that, but you on our board to speak to that, because your renderings make it look like it's an absolute jungle, and it'd be nice to have that happening to some degree earlier than 5 years. I feel like this site, because it's right on the corner of such a busy intersection, it doesn't make as much sense to push the building to the front. I think you're right to have the building toward the back. So I feel if you can really achieve this green belt sensation on both Calle Real and Patterson, that will actually be quite effective for the community. And the only other thing I'm wondering about is more private outdoor space for the upper units, because that just seems like a handicap that they don't have it.
Okay.
But all in all, I like the responses. I like the colors much better. I like the changes of materials. That all looks good to me.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, Member Bloomer, Vice Chair.
See, I don't have any additional comments. I think everybody covered everything that I was thinking about. Seems. I just have compliments to a concise and well-documented presentation.
Okay, yeah, I concur. I think the presentation was excellent. So I actually have several comments. I like that you're able to remove the site walls from all the way around, and that you actually kept them at the carport. I don't like the little blade walls at the entry.
Chris, I'm sorry. I should have said this. I'm sorry. If you mind my interruption. I'm in support of the project as submitted. I should have said that. I can't just, that's my comment.
And so, yeah, so I guess I should start with the larger, the macro level too. I think it's extremely intensive for this site, 27 units. I was just looking at the view from the overpass from Patterson to 101, and even when those trees are fully grown in 5 or 10 years, it's still sticking way up above those and in the mountain view. And to me, at least the east end of the structure should be reduced and taken a floor off. And if that means a reduction in units, then it does. But I think that there's a lot of concern in the community about this 3-story, and we're not really touching on that much here, but I do concur with much of the public that there's a huge program here. 27 units, so much parking. Parking, I understand, is necessary, but if we took 1 or 2 or 3 units off, say 2 at the east end and 1 at the west end, then we've also eliminated another 6 or 7 parking spots. So my view is that this is too intensive for the site. And then kind of, I guess, back to where I was, the entry, can you actually real quick answer a question, either Robert or Trudy? Would you say that those gates were locked and that is that right, for the pedestrian gates?
Yeah, they'll be locked. I mean, the pedestrians have a key, but it's not open to the public.
Right, so, but there's no entry gates for the vehicles, right? So they could just walk around?
Right, or we tried to do that because, it was in your packet if you saw the security exhibit. There's a transient corridor going on from county jail all the way through down here to the pretty much the homeless camp that caught on fire. So what we're thinking is, since we can't have a gate, we'll have video cameras there, and it's wide enough to be visible by the residents and see somebody coming in. So that's our thought. So we're doing the best we can security-wise. There's a law that says if you know of a security issue, the landlord's liable for it if you don't address it. So we think this is the best we can do.
Okay.
Without a gate.
Right. And then, okay, so yeah, but there's just the blade walls. I think you could, I don't know, curve them or something, or at least turn the corner on one of the ends. It just helps. Otherwise, they're just freestanding, and to me, it's not a finished.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah. And then as far as the colors go, I actually liked the alternate 2 at the bottom. I think it's more subtle and subdued. So that's my opinion. Maybe the rest of the board members could weigh in on what their color choice preference would be. The landscape looks really well done. I don't think that like 3 raised herb and veggie beds are necessarily appropriate for a place like this. Unless somebody claims them, they're just going to end up, sitting there. What I would recommend is just add more fruit trees. So personally, but up to you. I just don't see those being utilized, or somebody bullying and taking over all of them. Let's see. So I think lastly, there's the walkways over along North Patterson. I think that could just use more movement. Just you have one straight walkway with a bunch of steps right into where the gate is, and then you have a straight walkway out to the corner. I think just a little bit more of a curvilinear walk out there would be nicer, and maybe even the descent down from Patterson could have a little more interest, like, maybe a couple steps down and then shift over and a landing. And so that, and lastly, I think last time you were a little more successful with the planting of the trees along Calle Real. Having all those olives just in a straight line like that. I know you mentioned that it was harkened back to sort of the orchard look, but I don't really see that happening. I mean, you could maybe leave those as they are, and obviously you don't have too much wiggle room there, but even if you took 1 or 2 of those olives and put them out into the parkway, out beyond the other side of the fence, just to help break up that long straight line of trees, especially, along both Calle Real and Patterson. But I think just more of a little bit of a naturalized placement of those trees would be helpful. But I do appreciate the changes to the tree call outs for the entry, moving to Arbutus Marina, and you have a good tree list happening now. I think much more improved than from before. So I think those are my comments. Anyone else from the board have anything to add?
Well, I think the project is really strong and it's a good project. I think the best thing would be to have some outdoor space for these units. I think that's what's really lacking here, and I can't tell you how to solve that problem, but that's really what's needed. Okay, and other than that, I support the project very much. It's very well done.
Sorry, John, you're okay with the number of units and the 3 stories and all that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a necessity. I mean, to make it look like a neighborhood, what do you do? Put a sloped roof on top, and it's going to look funny to do that. I mean, it is what it is, and it's well handled. It doesn't bother me. It looks great.
Josh, can you go to the color? I want to get everyone's take on the colors also. I think it's on the architectural set.
Yeah, it's the last sheet. You're in landscape right now. You want to go back into architecture folder.
Yeah, so different folder, Josh. Okay. So, and then Val, you're okay with the intensity, the number of units? Oh, I see.
Yeah, I think I am, but I share the same concern as John about outdoor private spaces. I think it's kind of important in a big apartment complex, and particularly in our climate, for quality of life for the people, that they should have an outdoor space of their own.
Okay. And actually, this reminds me of one other comment I had. I mean, it's really shown better with one of the perspectives, but that the second story balcony, I guess it's the corrugated metal, that I didn't like that. It was too long and unbroken, I guess. It is broken in the middle, but it seemed like really bold form that, but again, if none of the other board has a problem with it, they're the architects, so I'll leave it alone. But,
Well, and now I have some concerns. I've been thinking about the plaster top and setting the corrugated into the wall as potentially being an odd detail. I like introducing galvanized, but they are long unbroken lines, and then the detail of that just seems not clean, or mixing materials in an unusual way between the plaster and the galvanized.
yeah, and I don't know if it's, because there are now basically, 5 sections in the building, but 3 different types of railing. I almost wonder if the railing should break with the buildings, or at least to jog out somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just, it's too monotonous, I think, across that second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Preference on color, Val?
Well, I actually like the proposed, not the alternates.
Okay. And Josh?
What?
What?
Care what the color scheme is? Do you have a preference here?
Sorry, you keep cutting out. What on my end? Sorry, say it again.
I'm wondering if you have a preference for the color scheme. That's why we're on this page.
No, I think I'm pretty comfortable with the way the team has proposed the project. I think they're doing good work here.
Okay.
I don't really have any modification to it.
All right.
Yeah, I like the proposed north elevation too.
Okay.
I love that red there. I wish I could use it someplace, but the proposed colors look good. It looks warmer.
Okay, that answers that. So, all right, let's see. We're here for conceptual, I believe, right? Further conceptual.
It'd be okay if I just answered a couple of things for you?
Not at this point. We can.
Okay.
I think we can move this. Keep moving forward here. Somebody want?
Can the board address the story poll request?
We'll definitely do that. I think.
Thank you.
Well, how do you all feel about that? Story polls.
Well,
Yeah, I think
So-
we're ready for story polls.
so Chris, do you have I mean, let's map this out. When does this project start to head towards preliminary approval? What's missing for a preliminary approval at this point? Because basically that means that if we do story polls, we're extending. I mean, I think story polling is excessive. I would support that if it was conditioned upon these guys returning as agendized for a preliminary final approval. So that, we do the story poll visit, and then we come back and see whether or not we can grant their a preliminary approval of the project.
Okay, well, you can put forward a motion if you want to that respect.
Yeah, I mean, well, the decision to put them on the agenda for preliminary approval for the next step isn't necessarily something we would vote on. It's just an indication that they're not returning for further conceptual. So we're telling them, just telling them how to make their presentation. And if it's falling on the tail of, or the tail of doing a site visit, story poll visit, then I think that's a pretty expeditious process. Like if we're going to do a story polling the site visit, we go do that, and then usually that works out. So we do that in the morning, and then we convene, and in the afternoon, this agenda item pops up, and we're giving them an opportunity for a preliminary approval. And if they bring in the right presentation and the board sees fit to it, they can actually potentially get that. I think that would be, I don't think that's something we vote on because there's nothing to approve here.
Oh, it'd just be what.
So if I could jump in real quick. So this is a discretionary level.
Name, oh, is this Joe? Sorry, I didn't recognize your voice.
Yeah. So just real quick, this is a discretionary level project that goes to a decision maker. So it looks like it'll actually go to the Board of Supervisors. So
right.
Before going to returning for preliminary and final approval, it will need to go before the decision maker. So I don't think they'd be able I don't think you'd be able to split further conceptual review and preliminary in one hearing. You'd have to wrap up conceptual and let them and say they're ready to return for preliminary approval.
So then if we do, well, then look, I mean, if we're going to do another conceptual review, it should come after a story polling like we're discussing, and then our comments go on to the supervisors with them knowing that we've seen a story polling of the project. So, and then it's back to us for preliminary.
Okay.
That seems like, I mean, I'm just trying to get my head around how this project goes forward, because it's, for some people, it's going to feel like a loaded up freight train that just can't stop. But, you know, for others, it might look differently, but it's pretty well packaged up here and ready to roll here. It's not. So that's how I see it. If that just frames my understanding of what happens next. Like, and Trudy, that gives you and your applicants and all you guys in the public another chance to come in and now make your arguments, because today really the bulk of this presentation was getting our head around where you guys want to take this thing, and you've done it so completely that I would just encourage everybody to put a pin in this and come back next time after we've done the story polling, and we could spend most of our time weighing in the arguments of the pros and cons of what's being proposed, because I don't think we're going to need to have another full. I would encourage you guys not to come back and do a 45-minute presentation on the project. Let's focus on the comments from the neighborhood and the comments that go in the record, and use that as a baseline for a discussion next time this comes up after a story polling. I think that would be productive. That's my opinion.
Yeah. So if the applicant decides they leave it as is and set up story polls, we come back for further conceptual, and then it goes to the Board of Supervisors, then that's their prerogative. It sounds like you're fine with the way it's proposed. I'm not. I think this is way too intensive for such a nice casual rural location like that. But so there's some differentiation in the board here. So I guess we can leave it up to the applicant as to what story polls they want to put up, or if they want to come back again first. But my inclination or inkling is that they would probably are happy with it as is too. And so it's up to them.
I think, Chris, I think the story polling is necessary because of the size of the structure and its prominence. I think even if we all validate this as a project, like, look, I've already said it on record, I support the project. I think that our precedence would be that we do a story polling process to confirm that our assumptions are correct. It validates our approval of it, and it actually opens up the opportunity for more discussion about some of the comments that have gone the other way. Some people aren't as accepting of what's being proposed as I am, so they need to have that process for themselves. So I think we should do story polling. I don't think we should even. I think I think the size of the project dictates that.
Okay, so that would basically be our next step then. Yes.
Yeah, and then if the story polling still. Like if the people who support this still like the project after it's been story polled, it just validates that they like it. And, these projects need that kind of process when it goes forward. It's got a lot more people to go see. The supervisors might say, did you guys story poll it? And then that brings into question whether or not everybody fully understands what's being proposed. And it certainly opens up the door for more discussion about whether or not we think this is the right mass bulk and scale or not, which seems to be just a point of contention for a great many people that
So we're all
deserve to see that.
in agreement that we need story poles. So that's where we're headed. And apologies to the applicant. We've been here for 7.5 hours and we're a little, but we're trying to get through this. So basically, I think the request then would be, we're requesting the applicant put up story poles. And I mean, I guess we don't even need a motion, right? Because they were conceptual. So there's some board members that feel that it's fine as is. Some members feel it should be reduced. And
Well, if I can interrupt here, I think the story polls will, define whether the 3 stories is okay or not. I mean, the 3 stories is high for the neighborhood to be sure, but if you're going to put up a 3-story building, that's a perfect place to do it in
okay.
this neighborhood because it will be the minimum impact for that.
Yeah. So can you help us again, Joe? What's the order of things here? Do we just put up story poles, come back for another conceptual meeting, and then send it to the Board of Supervisors, or how would this work?
So the story polls would be considered part of the conceptual review, and that's a component that you need to see in order to say whether or not the project is ready to be approved by your board. So in order to do that, story polls is part of conceptual. So then that needs to be done before the project can move on to the next stage, which is to the planning commission and to the board.
So technically they could have put up story polls yesterday or this week, and we could have gone and looked at them for this conceptual meeting. But so that would be the next step then. So story polls back for further conceptual. With the comments, do you need clarification on any of those comments, Joe?
So for one of the comments, I have the blade walls at entry. It sounded like they were awkward for some reason. I missed exactly why.
Well, just because they're blade walls. I think the applicant understood, but basically, they need some sort of a terminus. So one of the ends could turn and just for a few feet, so that it's not so blade wally.
That makes sense. Okay. I think that might be my only question. The comment about the curvilinear walk, is that along Patterson Avenue? I have studied more curvilinear walk along Patterson Avenue to add interest.
Yeah, Patterson. It's just the little.
That's, okay. All right.
Or walkways, plural.
Okay. Okay. That's those were the only questions I had.
Very good. Let's see. A minute of rebuttal. Trudy, are you clear on where we're?
Yeah, I just have a common sense question. Do you think we should maybe have a straw vote or something? Story polls are expensive, obviously, and to put them up and then find out, one person only wants a 2-story building is kind of a excessive thing. So I think we need to know if we're going in the right direction to put the story polls up. The second question would be, I just wanted to answer the question about more outdoor open space. We tried to do that. We can't extend the balcony any further north because of the fire access. You can't get into their space. So we're out as far as we can go in that direction. The only thing we can do is make the units smaller. They're pretty tight, they're 900 square feet. The room sizes, it would really be a mess. So we did work on that. The other thing I want to point out about the outside space, the acoustics are not going to be good from Kelly Rao on the 2nd floor. The reason we didn't get the sound walls is because they won't do any good for the 2nd and 3rd floor. And these buildings have to be air conditioned. So I don't think it's going to be like the most optimal place to sit outside. The quiet place to sit outside will be on the south side in the open space. So I not be able to solve that, I think.
Okay, so with regards to your first question, I understand that's a big undertaking. And I think the board is slightly divided maybe. We also have one or two members that are not here today, so keep that in mind. But I think it seems like that one member feels that everything's fine the way it is for the most part. It sounds like the other two members feel like we'll find out when the story polls are up whether or not 3 stories is too much. And then personally for me, I already think that it is too much. So we're kind of divided a little bit. That helps.
So Chris, I just to clarify, so I have that 2 members are supportive of the size of the project that's submitted, and I have that 1 member feels the project is too intensive for the site.
Yeah, I think, if you guys want to jump in, I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think it's tentatively acceptable in its density, but I want to see story polls. And I think it's too big and too important of a project to not have story polls.
Yeah, I think story polls will make you make up your mind if it's too massive or not. And also for the neighbors to see it.
So then it's up to you to decide if you want to reduce the project and put up those story polls, or if you want to.
I'm just a little confused. Are there only 3 members today?
There are 4.
There's 4.
So we have 3 in support and 1 says too intensive.
Well, not exactly. We have 1 in support, 2 that are waiting to see what the story polls tell us, and 1 opposed.
Okay, that's clear. That's fine with me. So if we could head toward story polls and final conceptual, that will tee us up to go on to the planning commission. And I understand it's not really final design, it's just conceptual.
Can I ask one question? I see, looking at the south elevation, you have a few balconies, but not many. Why wouldn't you be able to have more balconies,
We could,
private balconies on the south?
we could.
Because, yeah, I just think people should be able to step outside without having to go down into the public areas.
I'll look into how far you can, we're on the back setback, so we're close to it. I'll see how far back I can extend them and still be out of the setback.
Uh-huh.
All right, very good. I think that does it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is our last item.
Thank you all.
You want to make a motion to adjourn?
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'll second.
Okay, I think we're all in favor. Good to see you all, and see you in 2 weeks, I guess.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.